Hey everybody, welcome to Stuff Sketched with Gregg Schigiel. I am Gregg Schigiel, and on today's episode I'm drawing The Flash. I'm starting off with a bunch of little sketches. Sometimes I find sketching small helps me capture the pose I'm shooting for, and in this instance I was going for something where I was really attempting to push the figure. Not too long ago I watched the movie Tarzan, the Disney animated Tarzan movie, which, much like when I watched it in 1999, got me excited about drawing figures doing cool stuff. When I saw that movie, again, back in 1999, I was working at Marvel Comics, and it completely sort of changed the approach I was taking to drawing characters like Spider-Man, for instance. And all the posing I was doing was like, all right, what would Glenn Keane had done with Tarzan? And to that end, how cool is Spider-Man? Well, I guess now there's Into the Spider-Verse, which is a Spider-Man movie that kind of does stuff like that. But this is me figuring out what pose I want to use for the Flash, something that pushes perspective, moves the figure around, looks dynamic, looks interesting, looks exciting, etc. So a lot of sketching, a lot of doodling, different leg positions, different arm positions. You still want to wanted to make him look like he's running, but what was going to be the one that would be the most fun to draw and have that dynamism thing. And a bunch of these I like this one that I'm sketching right now I like, but I also wanted to keep things a little more. The considerations are like, all right, we'll be able to see these chest symbols. This is the one I settled on, one of the earlier sketches. I want to see the symbol on his chest. I want to get a big sense of twist and movement in the arms and the body. And then I take that and I start going from there. So you can see I don't follow specifically to the initial sketch. Once you start putting things into proportion, start adding the component parts, it deviates, and it'll deviate again and again, as is just how it shakes out. And you'll see there's a lot of drawing and redrawing and moving and shifting and adjusting. This is all being done digitally, so it's a little easier to move the pieces around and get things to where I want them to be. But a lot of drawing and redrawing to capture the movement and the proportions and the posing in a way that is satisfying, or satisfying enough. In terms of anatomy, I don't know that I specifically follow the exact muscle structures and groups that exist in an anatomy text, Gray's Anatomy text, for instance. But I think therein lies the magic of cartooning, as I've over the years have come to find and simplify shapes and forms to replicate what a human figure will look like. All right, so now that I've done all of that and I'm happy with those proportions, I'm doing another set of pencil drawing, but now I'm actually putting in costume details. From this is what I will base my inks on. Here's where I'm actually drawing the Flash. And there, the head was too big, so I'm shrinking it, moving a little bit. And even here, I'm not specifically hewing exactly to what I've drawn in the very rough pencils. I mean, it's mostly there, but I'm making adjustments and changes accordingly. The hand got a little smaller, that kind of thing. And again, with respect to proportions, clearly the size of the hands, the lengths of the limbs, these sorts of things are being pushed and exaggerated. I made the thigh a little shorter there. because I wanted a longer shin and foot situation. In terms of the Flash, it's a fun character. I've enjoyed the character. The power of super speed is one that is, when the question comes up, what superpower would you want? More often it's somehow implied the question is invisibility or flight, but my number one answer is teleportation, but my number two would be super speed. It'd be awesome. Move around so fast. Terrific. Flash the character, I definitely read a lot of the Flash in the 90s, for sure. Wally West would be the Flash I'm most versed in, and specifically the Michael Ringo, Mark Waid era of that character. So this is the costume I'm drawing, is that Wally West Flash with the sort of it wasn't metallic, but it definitely had a shine to it. The costume had a reflective element like that, and the white eye holes. But yeah, that was a series I read, and it was glory time. Michael Ringo was drawing it. Alan Davis was doing covers. Two of my favorites. Mark Waid was writing pretty great stuff. If you're interested in some great Flash comics, that's where I'd send you to. And then when Michael Ringo stopped drawing it, Carlos Pacheco did a bunch. It was just really talented people doing some great comics. But yeah, that was the era of Flash. That was my era. If you can claim an era of any superhero comic as yours. It was the era I read and enjoyed the most. Prior to that, I actually didn't read very many. I mean, I read old comics that would have the Flash with Barry Allen, but I never really read that series. My older brother did, and I have a specific memory of, at one point there was like months and months of the series where Flash was on trial, and man, those looked like boring comics. Nothing like seeing a super speedster in court. I have no idea if that's what actually happened in the comics. I'm being glib. With the inking on this, much like with the Batman the Outsiders and the Wolverine drawings I've done in past episodes, I'm shooting for as dynamic and sort of chunky lines as possible. Something that really sort of hits the mark. So you can see a few times I draw a line, redraw it, draw a line, redraw it. Because I'm shooting for, I don't know, exciting energy. I don't quite hit the chunky big line mark that somebody like Andy Siriano hits. If you know his work, he's basically the look of the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon is Andy Siriano, and it's awesome looking. But I don't quite hit those marks. Some of these reflective lines, completely just made up. They're not really following any sense of how reflections work. But, again, mostly just making a fun drawing. And you can see how all the construction sort of comes to play when it's all said and done, as you get a finished drawing that looks solid, all the pieces are in place. And there we go. And now I'm coloring it. Flash's colors are pretty simple. Red and yellow. This is a fairly classic costume in that there's not a lot of the extra lines and piping and stuff that seems to exist in modern superhero costumes. I prefer the simplicity of it. To me, it reads and communicates very quickly superhero and nothing else. Whereas with the piping or the padding or the segmenting, it sort of starts to look like tactical gear or military gear or something other than a superhero. And the Flash is a superhero. I don't watch the current TV show very much, but I do know that I've enjoyed seeing the costume on that show find more footing as a superhero costume. The red has gotten brighter, things like that. I did watch the old Flash series, the John Wesley Shipp series from the 90s. It was exciting at the time. Good Danny Elfman theme. I don't know if it holds up. I've not revisited it. But I did see that the writers of that show were some of the writers on Spike Lee's The Five Bloods, which was a surprise. I wasn't paying much attention to who was writing it, but then when the credits ran, it's like, wait, I know those names. And I did know those names. I'm using orange as my highlight color for two reasons. One is there's the lightning would be yellow and bright, so in theory it would reflect on the costume. Lightning being the lightning that would form as he's running, which I'll get to. And then two, my friend Chris Giruso does a very cool coloring effect where he picks I don't even want to say, he just picks a color as a highlight that is dynamic and not quite the color that the thing is. So this is me doing a cheap version of that. I've set up some perspective rulers in Clip Studio Paint, which is this software I'm using to draw, and that really helps with speed and shock lines because it keeps everything going in the same points and directions. And here I'm just using different shades of blue to add speed lines to the non-flash trail. And now I'm going into the flash trail with... I'm experimenting a little bit with how I do this. In a lot of cases I would have drawn some sparks under the feet, sort of like the fiery tracks of Back to the Future. But now I'm literally just I'm just going nuts and adding some fill color behind it just to hit the mark. But this is basically the drawing of the Flash, cleaning up a little bit here and there. This is the long and short of it. I don't know what else I can really say about the Flash except that's the drawing. So that's about all the stuff I have left to say. I'll see you next time.